Which brings up a lot of good questions like, why am I so unmotivated to learn something that would benefit me in the long run? Why would I think about it for years but then do nothing about it? And how would I even approach a grandiose topic like learning music, writing, or drawing? So therefore, Chapter 1, Procrastination, or why am I so lazy all the time? Like yeah, I get it, I do want to learn. A lot of us want to learn new things and acquire great new skills, but often we lack the motivation to do so. Which brings up a lot of good questions like, why am I so unmotivated to learn something that would benefit me in the long run? Why would I think about it for years but then do nothing about it? And how would I even approach a grandiose topic like learning music, writing, or drawing? So therefore, Chapter 1, Procrastination, or why am I so lazy all the time? Like yeah, I get it, I do want to learn new things, but both you and I know I'm not actually going to do it. But yeah, sure, I'll watch your video just in case. It's important to address procrastination first, because odds are you are going to learn something new right now, but you don't actually like the idea of learning something new. And there's an actual reason for that. When you learn something new, it actually adds a bit of stress to your mind. It's the same area in your brain that activates pain, and that goes off. So because of this, the idea of taking some time to learn something can give you anxiety, because why would you want to do the equivalent of hurting yourself? So the best solution to all of this is just start doing it. And that almost sounds too simple, but it's really important that you learn how to take initiative. It's important because you can fear doing something all day or for several days because you keep thinking, well, I just need to find the right mood for it, and then I'll actually do it. But really, you just need to start doing it, because no one else can do that for you, and once you have started doing it, all that pain and discomfort actually goes away. You move past it, and it's over. You're now in the learning zone. And it's a lot easier to get back into it the more frequently you get over this threshold. But then there's another problem. Once you have started doing something, you're going to run into some problems, and you're suddenly going to switch your attention to something else. Something frustrating or negative happens and it breaks your momentum. So because you're not reaching the reward you had anticipated, your brain goes for something short term. But instead you just have to do it again. You have to find your initiative again. And you have to remember that while it's easy to get short-term satisfaction from Instagram, Twitter, and video games, it's all the stuff that's fun in the short term. But what you're actually doing in terms of studying and work is going to lead to long-term satisfaction. So yeah, that was easy. Chapter 2, how to remember what you have learned, because I would prefer not to go over the basic steps over and over again, please, thank you. If you want to get down to what learning actually is, it is a cell in your nervous system called a neuron, and information flows from one neuron to another neuron through a synapse. And your brain has a billion of these synapses, so don't worry about it. You're not suddenly going to go, oh, I have 0.1 gigabytes left in my brain. I guess I'm never learning anything again. Bye, everybody. Whenever you are learning something new, your brain creates more synapses, so there really is no limit to how much you can learn. But that said, it is still important that you take rest. You can't cram every single thing into your head immediately, because you need to take some time to memorize and process these things so you actually remember it. Learning is repetition, and relearning the things that are kind of fading away in your head is important, because you need to strengthen these connections in your brain. Your brain is really good at remembering things, but it remembers things based on how important they are. So if you have forgotten something, it's probably because you didn't really have a need for it. One way to approach this with something like drawing is not by tackling everything like anatomy, perspective, and color theory at the same time, because that's just too much. Instead, tackle your biggest flaws right now. That is how you establish the need for learning. And when you read a book for something like anatomy, don't just read from page 1 to the last. Use the pages that you actually have a need for right now, and go back to those pages again when you need to relearn it. But the number one priority that comes to remembering anything is actually sleep. Sleep is extremely important because it plays a large part in processing your synapses. It creates more synapses and also cleans your synapses from metabolic toxins so they don't get dirty and muddled, and maybe you kinda remember, or maybe that was about something else and now you only half remember. And another great option for your mental rest is physical exercise and social contact. Exercise and being socially active helps your brain produce new neurons. Staying physically active and talking to people daily will actually help you study and learn better, and in contrast, staying shut in all day is a great way to develop severe depression. Chapter 3. Even with everyone's help, you still have to do everything on your own. While you could listen to music, watch TV, or YouTube videos while studying and working on something, that's not going to be 100% efficient. But maybe you want to sacrifice some of that efficiency so you can enjoy some music, some fun video stuff while also getting some work done. And here is basically the way that I would approach it. Because there are two different modes of thinking. The focused mode, also called the logical mode or the left brain mode, which has a lot more to do with concentration and sort of relating new things to what is already familiar. This mode pretty much requires that there are no distractions, so your memory is not inefficient. But this might not always be the most fun thing to work with, so when you are a creative person, you tend to prefer the diffused mode, also known as the creative mode or the right brain mode. And with this mode, your brain is free to wander. You can put on some music, some videos, because you're not really learning anything new, instead you're reinforcing what you have already learned. So knowing this and knowing that we are not completely left-brained or completely right-brained, and that these are just modes that we can shift back and forth between, we can utilize the modes to be the most efficient for us. If you're going to learn something new, then probably don't have distractions. But in expressing something, let your mind wander. But no matter what you are learning or how you are doing it, you have to do it by yourself. You can't really watch a video of someone painting and pick up all the painting skills without painting along. When you see someone else do something, it's not understanding it. Because a large part of learning is problem solving, and you have to solve the problem yourself.
Grammarly Business offers AI-powered writing assistance for your enterprise.
And that's how it gets easier. Sometimes it can be so hard to learn something new because it's so different that you have no way to really watch a video of someone painting and pick up all the painting skills without painting along. When you see someone else do something, it's not understanding it. Because a large part of learning is problem solving, and you have to solve it before it gets tough, and that's how it gets easier. Sometimes it can be so hard to learn something new because it's so different that you have no way of relating to it. If something feels so abstract that you can't even relate to it, then you have to not just learn the name for it or what category it belongs to, but you have to learn about it until it feels real, until it's a part of reality. When it comes to drawing, I might think of an eye, and the eye actually sticks out a lot, but it's kind of hard to imagine that on your own. So I can say, eyes are like marbles, and eyelids are like fabric over them. And now we have a way of relating to just how the eye looks as it sticks out. The things that feel tougher is to get across the major idea and not get stuck in the details. Because as you get to learn these things that are more abstract or harder to learn, your synapses will start to connect easier with more complicated things. Because now you have something that is actually relatable. It's important to not get too stuck in the details because otherwise all you have is the details. Chapter 5. You still have to do a lot of studying. If you want to remember something, you have to test yourself. You have to make it important to you and have a need for it. So you can test yourself by trying to do different things from memory to see how much you actually know. And then when you see what is wrong, you can study it again to correct it. And there's nothing wrong with catching yourself not knowing something, or having made a mistake. All of this is part of the learning process. There's always going to be mistakes, because mistakes are a part of how we learn. But a problem that can happen with creative people is that they become too trusting of their right side intuition, to the point where you now refuse to learn something new because your intuition is misleading. Repeating something you already know well is pretty easy, so it can feel like you have already mastered something when you actually have not. Something that can happen with something like drawing is that you keep drawing heads from imagination until now this is what heads look like to you. So it really is important that you set aside time for deliberate practice and don't only rely on your intuition. Because your intuition is important, but in the right situations. And then on the more left brain side of things, as much as we would like to cram all the studying in so we can learn everything immediately, it just doesn't work, because your brain won't be able to keep up with making new neural structures. I think a good way to approach this is by mixing things up. Don't just study one thing over and over again, but go back and forth between different things so that you give yourself the space to repeat and process the things you are learning. Set aside time to fully study something, and then time to freely explore it. So by spacing things out over periods, we can actually use our practice and our intuition to reliably learn new things. The final chapter. Everything is about the process. It's perfectly normal to procrastinate because things feel unpleasant, especially if they are really new to us. Maybe for a long time you wanted to make music, but you haven't made any steps towards making music. You don't know anything about music. You don't know where to start. It's this big overpowering thing, and in comparison, even the first steps feel so tiny. But if you were to focus right now, not so much on everything unpleasant up ahead, but what you could learn right now, maybe you could open up a music software and just get acquainted with it. What if you bought a smaller instrument just to play around with and have fun with? What if you did something that works with where you are right now in the present moment? Because the thing is, when we expect the initial pain of learning something new, we expect everything after that to be just as painful. Maybe you don't have any highly developed talents and skills, but you have these artists you look up to, and more than anything you want to have those skills. You want to have what they have, but you can't have that right now. But you can have the initiative. You can have the talent of making effort, time investment, and getting something done no matter how small it is. And anything that comes after that can just be a byproduct. Maybe if we trace back to where talent comes from, then maybe this is where it starts. And it only relies on one thing, that you take the initiative.